Contractors bicker over MTR construction scandal amid growing calls for an independent inquiry. Government flushes out details for tax on vacant properties. And G7 summit rocked by rifts between US and its allies.
Good evening and welcome. Firms involved in botch expansion works at Hong Hom Station are now playing the blame game. One of the subcontractors says it is wondering whether the main contractor, Leighton Asia, actually carried out the remedial work as promised. This comes as legislators press the government for an independent panel into growing scandal. Kina Chu has the story.
Meanwhile, Chief Secretary for Administration Matthew Zhang said today an appeal for an independent investigative panel is under consideration. It could be set up under Chapter 86 of the Commissions of Inquiry Ordinance.
In this ordinance, the Commission would have a very wide range of power. For example, like subpoena certain witness, power to arrest, and they may issue search warrant as well. There is a very wide range of powers, and at the same time, you can see that under this ordinance, the witnesses as well as the members of the Commission will be protected.
Both pan-democratic and pro-establishment lawmakers see eye to eye on this.
I think our CE should try to manage the committee. They have enough power to call such a constructor to come out. If without any power, I don't think they will cooperate with the government or the committee. The MTR corporate should try to push the constructor to come out. I think they have such power, but I don't know why they still cannot push them.
China Tech lamented that credible employees of the contractors involved are innocent. They may have been blindsided as well to anyone wanting to deliberately deceive on this issue. Kina Chu, TVB News.
Government officials have talked about introducing a vacancy tax on properties that have been completed but left empty. The idea is to boost supply in an overheated market where prices have continued to smash records. If introduced, the tax may come in form of increased rates. Here in Hong Kong, there are people who can't seem to catch up with home prices that have been skyrocketing. Then there are completed flats that are left unused. In fact, government figures show in the 3 months ending this March, developers have completed 9,000 new homes which have not been rolled out to the market. As the government study on a vacancy tax draws near, sources indicated the tax may come in the form of additional rates, though discussions are still underway on how much extra it'll be. Over in Vancouver, Canada, the empty homes tax is 1% of the property's assessed taxable value. This scholar thinks that 1% might be too low to achieve the desired effect.
Eddie
Hui, a professor of real estate at the Hong Kong Polytechnic University, thinks if prices climb 10% a year, developers can still make a profit from holding up their stock. Then there's a second problem. How long will flats be left unused before they are deemed vacant enough to be taxed? Sources pointed to a general understanding that it should be at least a year after an occupation permit has been issued. Still, Financial Secretary Paul Chan will have the final say. It's understood that leading developers participated in a special meeting arranged by the Real Estate Developers Association of Hong Kong. Views collected then will be submitted to the government.
Well, meanwhile, $36 million in government funding might be available for modular housing to be rented out to those who have been waiting for public housing for at least 3 years. The Hong Kong Social Services Council plans to help build 90 modular housing units in Sham Shui Po. It may build 200 more if it's granted 2 other pieces of government land. Council Chief Chua Hoi-wei says the cost isn't particularly high compared with other housing projects. It's now studying the possibility of expanding construction to temporary public car parks as well.
So many people are waiting for public rental housing, and the waiting time has been prolonged to 5.1 years, which is much longer than the pledge of the government. If the government can set aside, for example, 1 billion to build this kind of modular housing, then we will be able to build several thousand units.
Overseas, US President Donald Trump confronted his allies at the G7 meeting of industrialized nations, again accusing them of unfair trade practices and taking advantage of the US. Trump stirred the pot further by asking why Russia was excluded from the meeting. Alan Buckner reports.
Because of Trump's confrontational attitude and protectionist policies, the meeting has often been referred to as G6 versus 1. Still, Trump did seek to lower the temperature after his arrival, even joking with host Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau about the tariffs Canada imposed on $13 billion worth of U.S. exports in retaliation for U.S. steel and aluminum tariffs.
Justin has agreed to cut all tariffs and all trade barriers between Canada and the United States. So I'm very happy about that.
So I'd say NAFTA's in good shape.
But we are actually working on it.
Canada and Mexico are currently renegotiating the North American Free Trade Agreement with the United States.
We've made a lot of progress. It could be that NAFTA will be a different form. It could be with Canada, with Mexico, one-on-one, much simpler agreement, much easier to do, I think better for both countries.
Trump questioned why Russia wasn't present for the negotiations. Moscow was ousted in 2014 after its annexation of Crimea and its support for pro-Russian separatists in Ukraine. There's also a high-profile investigation in the U.S. into whether the Trump campaign colluded with Russia to sway the 2016 presidential election. German Chancellor Angela Merkel said as long as there's no progress on the situation in Ukraine, Russia will be excluded. Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron, who's been expressing increased frustration with Trump's protectionist policies, put on a positive spin.
Sometimes we disagree, but we always speak and share, I think, common concerns and common values. Right. And we share the willingness to deliver and get results together.
But Trump won't be in Quebec for the end of the summit. He's heading to Singapore in advance of next week's meeting with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Alan Buckner, TVB News.
Meanwhile, the countdown is on in Singapore for the first face-to-face meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. As doubts and worries linger about the outcome of the summit, the Lion City is contending with its own challenges: beefed-up security, an international media frenzy, and trouble with doubles. A sure sign a summit is coming to your city is sudden inconvenience.
Pretty momentous occasion, so happy for a little bit of inconvenience if they can solve some deep problems plaguing the world.
Trump and Kim are due to meet in Singapore on Tuesday for a summit aimed at getting North Korea to give up its nuclear weapons. Experts say the city-state offers safety, security, and control.
So, in the event that there needs to be some management of the message or the impressions that come out of the meeting, it can be more easily done in Singapore than probably anywhere else.
But Trump, the self-proclaimed master deal maker, is facing doubts from multiple corners. Aside from ambiguity about what denuclearization might actually look like, many worry Trump may see a peace deal as a quick, fairly painless path to a Nobel Peace Prize. Kim, meanwhile, would love to get U.S. troops off the Korean peninsula. But that would require a peace treaty, which some fear could lead to disaster instead of peace.
So this is a slippery slope, and a peace treaty signed by Mr. Trump, or that's looking for some kind of peace treaty with North Korea, really would put Japan in an awkward position.
Meanwhile, the summit warm-up act has already begun. Kim Jong-un impersonator Howard X and his counterpart, Donald Trump lookalike Dennis Allen, are already a hit show in Singapore. But Howard X, who is based in Hong Kong, said he was hauled in for questioning as soon as he landed.
The Singaporean immigration decided to give me a welcome by giving me an interrogation for 2 hours, so that wasn't fun. But I'm here now.
Howard's been told to stay away from the real summit.
So shocking, just that.
No peace deals from the impersonators, but they are a big deal for the tourists.
They're fake. You know that, right?
No!
The Washington Post has reported that Chinese government hackers compromised computers of a US Navy contractor and stole a large amount of sensitive data. The newspaper said the breaches took place in January and February. A large amount of highly sensitive data was reportedly stolen, including plans for a supersonic anti-ship missile for use by US submarines. The Post said the Navy and FBI have an ongoing investigation into the matter. A Chinese government spokesman said they know nothing about the reported hacking and added the government staunchly upholds cybersecurity.
Coming up after the break. Hong Kong mourns the loss of local literary giant Louis Chang. Calls for government to implement a universal pension fall on deaf ears again.
馬天 E Super 重點推介，香港寬頻呈現，極速環遊世界專區，超過20個 TVB 旅遊節目，飛去全球熱門地方，緬甸奇幻旅程，秋遊東京，北海道攻略，新美旅行團，世界零距離等等。睇完好想即刻飛咧！記得用埋 TVB 香港寬頻，要靠力全力打造嘅 Global Phone，配合數據 plan 同 TVB Apps， 咁就去到邊都睇實 TVB 節目啦！
Welcome back to TVB News. Hong Kong is mourning the loss of literary scholar Liu Yichang, who passed away at the age of 99 yesterday. Pinky Wong has more.
Born in Shanghai in 1918, Liu moved to Hong Kong in his 30s, where he became recognized for his literature. The renowned novelist was awarded the HKSL Medal of Honor in 2011.
He actually always applied Western methods of literary writing in his novels, such as some modernist theories or stream of consciousness.
Liu passed away yesterday afternoon in hospital, surrounded by family members.
Various groups demanded the government to implement a universal pension scheme during the last hearing on the issue at LegCo today. Despite their pleas, the government continues to insist it will not consider a pension scheme. Christy Leung has more.
Ahead of the final public hearing on the issue, protesters voiced their demands for a universal pension scheme. Similar views were also heard inside LegCo today. Some criticized that other retirement protection plans, such as public annuity and reverse mortgages, bring an element of risk into retirement.
Why are you not working on universal pension? Instead of asking people to put their money into annuity schemes, you're actually asking them to invest in financial products.
However, it is still a no from the government on implementing a universal pension.
Over 80% of the extra resources will be spent on those who do not have any financial needs if we were to introduce a universal retirement protection package.
It's not going to be as cost-effective as targeted measures.
Some urged for improvements in the existing mandatory provident fund scheme, such as scrapping the MPF's offsetting mechanism.
We have to help both the employer and employee to reach a consensus with regard to the offsetting mechanism in order to protect the working force.
Apart from the MPF, Choi says the government will continue to strengthen existing retirement protection measures. That includes old age living allowances. Christy Leung, TVB News.
Public perceptions of and confidence in the legal system have changed. That's what the Chief Justice of Hong Kong's top court told lawyers as he led a legal ceremony this morning. Without citing any particular cases, Geoffrey Ma said some members of the community lose sight that the court's responsibility is to decide legal disputes in accordance with the law. That's especially with cases that originated from controversial political, economic or social events. That's when people's perception and confidence in the legal system became largely, if not wholly, dependent on the result. He said political views of judges simply don't matter as they are appointed only for their judicial and professional qualities.
Well, overseas again, a British Prime Minister, Theresa May, says she's confident of achieving an October deadline on Brexit negotiations with the European Union.
Next week, we're bringing the European Withdrawal Bill back to the House of Commons to deal with the Lord's amendments. Following that, I'll be going to the June European Council, where we'll be talking about finalising withdrawal agreement, but also pressing on the future relationship. The British people want us to deliver Brexit, and I'm getting on and doing exactly that. And I'm doing it because there is a prize for us at the end of this, which is a brighter future for Britain, in control of our laws, our money and our borders.
The European Union's chief negotiator says Britain's latest proposal for avoiding border problems between EU member Ireland and Northern Ireland of the UK raises more questions than answers. But Michel Barnier says it's still welcome progress towards a solution. May proposed a backstop plan for the border if the UK and EU fail to agree to a broader trade deal that protects the status quo.
Forensic experts are working to identifying dozens of bodies charred beyond recognition by the eruption of Guatemala's volcano of fire. The disaster has left at least 110 confirmed dead and nearly 200 people still missing. Experts are extracting samples from bones to do DNA tests. Search and recovery efforts were suspended for a second day amid dangerous new volcanic flows and dwindling hopes of finding survivors. Some residents who had recently returned to their homes were told to leave once again. More than 3,000 emergency workers are on the scene and close to 4,000 people have been displaced by the disaster.
Meow.
Looks quite fun. And that's the news.
Thanks for watching.